I never thought the people who brought me into this world would treat me like their personal cash machine, but here I was, standing in the middle of my parents' living room in suburban Chicago, with my heart pounding as I overheard them laughing about how easy it was to squeeze money out of me. My name is Emily Thompson, and this is the story of how my own family betrayed me for years, until I rose from the ashes and made them regret every single dollar they took. It all started when I was just 22, fresh out of college, with my accounting degree from the University of Illinois. I landed a decent job at a mid-sized firm in downtown Chicago, and the first thing my parents did was sit me down at the kitchen table. Dad, with his usual tired sigh, said the family business was struggling. Mum wiped fake tears from her eyes, talking about medical bills piling up for my younger brother Jake, who had some vague health issues that seemed to flare up whenever money was mentioned. They asked for a small loan just to get by. I wired them $5,000 that very night, thinking it was temporary. I was the good daughter, the underdog who always stepped up. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Over the next 8 years, I became their ATM. Jake never held a steady job. He bounced from one scheme to another, always needing seed money for his next big idea. My older sister, Lauren, lived in a fancy apartment in Lincoln Park that I helped furnish after her divorce. Her ex had left her with debt, and suddenly I was covering her rent, groceries, and even her kids' private school tuition. Every month it was the same text messages. We need help with the mortgage, or the car broke down again, can you spot us? I worked 60-hour weeks living in a tiny, one-bedroom in a modest neighborhood while they upgraded their kitchen, renovated the backyard, and took family vacations to Florida that I funded, but was never invited to join. The betrayal cut deepest during my hardest times. When I was 26, I got really sick with pneumonia and spent 2 weeks in the hospital. My savings drained from medical bills and lost wages. Instead of helping my family, asked if I could still send the monthly $2,000 for Mom's new car payment. I remember lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I was killing myself for people who only called when they needed something. But I kept giving. I was raised to believe family comes first no matter what. That was my biggest mistake. I started noticing the patterns. They would guilt trip me about how I was the successful one with the good job while they struggled. Dad would say things like, "You know, we sacrificed everything for you kids." Even though Mom stayed home, and Dad's contracting business was mostly him complaining about clients. Lauren would post pictures on Facebook of their fancy dinners, tagging me with heart emojis, while simultaneously Venmo requesting money for her emergency spa day. Jake once called me crying, saying he needed 10 grand to avoid jail over some bad investment. I wired it immediately, only to find out later he used it for a Vegas trip with friends. The hook that changed everything came on a cold November evening 3 years ago. I had driven out to their house in Naperville to drop off groceries and a check for property taxes. I walked in quietly and heard them in the den. Mom was laughing, saying, "Emily is so predictable. She'll send whatever we ask. She's our little golden goose." Dad chuckled, "Just don't push too hard or she'll figure it out. Remember when we told her the roof needed fixing? We used that money for the cruise." Lauren added, "She's such a pushover. We should ask for more for Jake's new truck. She owes us for raising her." Jake laughed along, calling me the family bank. I stood there frozen with the grocery bags still in my hands. My blood ran cold. All those years of sacrifice, and they saw me as nothing but an ATM. I didn't confront them that night. Instead, I drove home with tears streaming down my face and made a vow to myself. No more, but I knew I had to play it smart. I started secretly building my escape. During those long nights after sending them money, I taught myself digital marketing and invested every spare dollar I could hide into stocks and a small side business. I created an online accounting and consulting service for small businesses targeting Chicago startups. I worked from 5 a.m. until midnight building it, while still sending them just enough to keep them from suspecting anything. I lived on ramen and coffee to save every penny. My secret success began to bloom quietly. Within a year, my side hustle turned into a full agency. I landed my first big client, a tech startup in the Loop that needed help scaling their finances. Word spread, and soon I had a waiting list. I rebranded as Thompson Financial Solutions and moved into a better apartment without telling my family. I bought my first investment property in a up-and-coming neighborhood, using profits they never knew about. All while they kept demanding more, thinking I was still their struggling but reliable daughter. I smiled through phone calls, nodded along to their stories, and slowly cut back without them noticing the full picture. The family betrayal grew worse as my hidden success expanded. They pressured me into co-signing loans for Jake's failed businesses. When one collapsed, they blamed me for not giving more. Lauren's kids needed new gadgets and sports equipment that magically became my responsibility. Mum even suggested I move back home to save money so I could contribute more to the family pot. I overheard more conversations where they mocked my single life, saying I had no real responsibilities, so obviously I should share everything. It fueled my fire. Every insult, every demand pushed me harder in secret. I hired my first employee. I expanded to virtual services across the Midwest. My net worth crossed 6 figures, then 7, while they still thought I was barely getting by. One particular summer, things escalated. Jake got into serious trouble with gambling debts. He showed up at my door at midnight, begging for $25,000, swearing it was life or death. I gave him part of it, but for the first time I asked for details and proof. He got angry, called me selfish, and said, "Blood is thicker than water." When I hesitated, the whole family piled on with group texts, accusing me of abandoning them. Dad threatened to cut me out of the will. Mom cried about how ungrateful I was. After everything they did, I paid but documented everything meticulously. That was the turning point where my public revenge plan began forming. I kept building. I invested in real estate, flipping houses in the suburbs. My agency grew to 10 employees, with offices in a nice building near Millennium Park. I traveled for business to New York and Los Angeles, staying in hotels they could only dream of, but never posted about it. On social media, I showed just enough success to seem stable, but not flashy. Meanwhile, I watched them drain themselves with bad decisions, expecting me to always refill the tank. The underdog was transforming, and they had no idea the public revenge came at what they thought would be their biggest triumph. My parents' 35th wedding anniversary party. They had planned a huge event at a banquet hall in the western suburbs, expecting me to foot most of the bill as usual. They sent me the invoice for $15,000, casually saying it was my gift to them. I paid it, but this time I had conditions. I told them I wanted to give a special toast. They agreed, thinking it would be more praise for the family. Little did they know, I spent months preparing. I compiled every text message, every bank transfer, every lie into a professional presentation. I hired a private investigator to document their spending on luxury items, vacations, and even hidden assets, while claiming poverty. On the night of the party, the hall was packed with relatives and friends. I stood up at the microphone dressed in a stunning designer dress they had never seen, looking confident and successful. The room went quiet as I began. I started softly recounting how I had always tried to be the good daughter, supporting the family through thick and thin. Then I clicked to the first slide, showing years of transfers, totaling over $450,000. Gasps filled the room. I detailed every betrayal, the fake medical emergencies, the mocked conversations, the vacations I funded but was excluded from. I played a quiet audio clip of their laughter calling me the family ATM. Faces turned red. Mom started crying, but this time it was real. Dad looked furious. Jake tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I revealed my success. The company valuation approaching 8 figures. The properties I owned. The life I built while they drained me. Then came the hammer. I announced I was done. No more money. All future requests would be ignored. I had set up trust and legal protections. And to top it off, I donated a significant sum in their name to financial literacy charities, teaching people to avoid family exploitation. The room erupted in whispers, and some applause from distant relatives who had seen similar patterns. Lauren tried to spin it, saying I was exaggerating, but her own husband looked shocked at the numbers. Jake stormed out. My parents sat there stunned as the party atmosphere died. I ended by saying, success was the best revenge, and I hoped one day they would understand what real family means. I walked out to cheers from some and silence from others. The video someone recorded went mildly viral in family drama circles, and suddenly people were reaching out with their own stories. In the months that followed, they tried everything. Guilt trips, lawsuits, even fake health scares. But I stood firm with lawyers and boundaries. Jake eventually got a job out of desperation. Lauren downsized. My parents sold their big house and moved smaller. I thrived, my business booming with the freedom. The underdog daughter had won. I found peace helping others set boundaries and building my chosen family with true friends and a partner who respects me. This is my story of betrayal, secret success, and public revenge. If you're in a similar situation, know that you can break free. You are not an ATM. You deserve better. Thanks for listening to my journey on Revenge Orchid. Drop your thoughts below. And remember to like and subscribe for more stories of family drama and sweet justice.